All right, we're here with Mike Deloia, longtime customer and friend of Specialty Forest Products and myself. And Mike, welcome. Thanks for taking the time to come and talk with us. It's great to have you here. Mike's been in this business for a long time, I think, over 40 years, 41 years to be exact. A craftsman, business owner. And you've even ventured off into the restaurant business. Maybe we can get into that a little bit as we go along, but just wanted to welcome you, and thanks for coming up here.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to having a little discussion with you guys. Obviously, I've known you quite a while, Ryan, and Steve, I've known you for over a dozen years now.
Thanks, Mike, for recognizing I'm sitting here in front of you.
I'm sorry. It's all good.
It's not you. It's the guy in the hat over there. We've all been doing this a long time. That, like Ryan said, I didn't know that you were involved in the. We had pizza in that place.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, because I ran into you and you're like, "Come down sometime and
we'll sit down. We'll have a pizza. We'll catch up and we'll talk some Italian food and Hardwood."
I never talked to you again. You know why? When I told Kevin, he goes, "No one knows you're coming here."
Actually,
if he knows, so I had to zip it.
And it is a fact that really that was the birth of Specialty Forest Products in Hudson, where you're sitting right now, was in your restaurant.
Well, I like to hear that. That's something I was not privy to.
That was the initial meeting.
That's great, and I hope you guys enjoyed that as well.
Well, you go all the way back to the great salad dressing rebellion of 1990, whatever, and then out of nowhere, after like a decade, he calls me, and I go, "I remember you. You're the salad dressing guy. You can explain that story." And then we started talking, and you said, you know Ryan and those guys. Next time you come down, I have a place. We'll get you lunch. And then I called Kevin. He goes, "Don't tell Mike any. No one knows that we even met in his restaurant. I mean, that I was coming aboard, which we still had not hashed out yet.
Yeah.
So you were way ahead of the curve."
That's funny. I didn't realize that there was a secret society that I was unaware of.
You came in a couple of days later, and you were asking questions, and we were like, We got
a special handshake we can't even share with you, or Joe would have to kill you."
So, we want to elaborate on that salad dressing story.
Yeah, that is a cool. Tell me what happened.
So we had a customer in Northborough, Mass. Beautiful home. She bought a reclaimed, pared-looking floor. It was a newer floor, but it was designed to look like an old reclaimed product. We did the job. Everything was beautiful. She was thrilled with it. And then we had a problem. She said that her son had spilt salad dressing on the floor and it left stains. And I thought to myself, well, that's not possible. Salad dressing does not penetrate a finish like that. It just doesn't happen. And I went out there and looked at it, and I walked around, and I'm like, what is going on here? So I remember I took a couple of the boards back with me. I tried my own olive oil is what I tried. I heated it up in a microwave. I did a couple of really odd things because I couldn't figure out what was going on. I let it sit overnight, and it didn't do what she had said it did. So I'm thinking to myself, something's going on here. I don't know what it is. And I called up, Marco, and Marco said, call Steve Diggins. He goes, he's probably the most knowledgeable guy in the industry. I called up Steve, and Steve says, that does not sound right to me, Mike. He said, I've never heard of that in my life. He said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go out and look at it and inspect it. I'm not going to charge you anything, and we're going to figure this out, and we're going to be detectives on it. I said, great, Steve. I appreciate your help. Steve drove down there. He went to the customer's home, looked at it, took a couple of boards, went to the same place that she had said she got the salad dressing. Steve called me up after he left. He says, Mike, there's no way that's salad dressing. Something isn't right here. She spilled something on it, and she's not fessing up. I said, okay. He said, but let's just do our due diligence and figure out what's going on here. I said, okay. 3 days later, I get a phone call. Mike, it is 100% the wood. She is telling the truth. The salad dressing did stain it. I said, how is that possible? You said, well, here's what happened. I couldn't figure it out myself. I went out and bought a high-powered microscope and looked at the floor under a high-powered microscope, and I noticed a porous surface. And as I poured the stuff on it under the microscope, I could actually see it penetrating. What happened was the factory did not put enough urethane on the finish to protect it from that type of a spill. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So I went back with the report that Steve had written up for me, and sent it to them, and they honored it and gave me full credit for the floor, which I passed on to the customer. I did offer to go out, replace the boards, and put another coat on it if she wanted, whatever she wanted to do. She says, no, just give me the credit on it, and we're good to go. And everybody was happy, but it was one of the most mysterious things I had ever seen in my life at that point. That was 12 years ago.
You just solved the mystery, because I just sold that microscope. I think it's been 2 decades, but I forgot that that's why I went to buy it. I'm like, I got to look at what's going on. And you gave me boards, and I put them back, and I tried everything, all different things, including the salad dressing. Some things like water didn't do anything, but sure enough, her salad dressing under a scope, clearly it was just like leaving oil in your driveway, right? And that's when I was really intimidated by getting a hold of the manufacturer. Really good company, high-end floor. And I'm like, guys, I got to tell you, I have to put it in my report, but your finish isn't stopping anything. And you guys went and you did all the work. It looked fantastic. So, wow, look at you. You're the one that people go, what do you need a microscope? Now I know it's your fault I had to get it.
I'll take the blame on that one. Like I said, I guess we all learn and we grow. And this is a situation where you can't just look at a floor. And I know you always say, Steve, the floor tells a story. In this case, yeah, it told a story, but it could have also told a lie, and we just weren't sure what the story was.
She said, salad dressing, wood. So all I needed was the wood, the salad dressing, and I could have said, no, you're full of it. But yeah, the finish was super, super weak. And that happens with a lot of new manufacturers. They'll tell you they have this beautiful impervious floor, and they actually don't. So that was
Steve always says the floor tells the story. He also rails against cognitive bias. And it's easy to say there is no way this could be the manufacturer not having enough finish on the floor, but you got to set that cognitive bias aside and say the floor tells the story.
Ryan, they ask, whenever I do a podcast, I ask people, what's really bothers you on the floor? And then somebody in a podcast asked me, and I just said, confirmation bias. Every day someone tells me, now don't tell me it was water in my basement that caused this, or they have already chosen their narrative, and they're going to push the argument that way. We have to look at exactly how everything unfolds. Everybody wants to steer it, and they'll go, I went online, and what do they look up? Why my floor is damaged due to this, and they find an answer for it. But you're not looking at everything. They're always in denial. It drives me nuts.
Well, a lot of people are predisposed to their own opinions, and they're so set in their ways that they believe that they are correct. There's no way they're not correct. I had a job, actually it was Grafton, Mass, about 10 years ago. We had put down this maple floor in this customer's kitchen, dining room, and pretty much the whole first floor. They called me up about 6 months later. They go, we got a problem with the floor. It's starting to peel. And I said, what do you mean it's starting to peel? So I went over to the job site, and I walked in, and I said, this is cupping. And they go, well, yeah, but it's your floor. I go, my floor doesn't cup. It didn't look like that when we left 6 months ago. So something was added to it after we left. And it was right by a dishwasher. And I said, oh, your dishwasher's leaking. He goes, no, it's not. And I said, well, that's my first opinion, is that the dishwasher's leaked. It's right in front of it. And that's where the cupping was highest and worst. And I checked the moisture levels, and I said, well, something's wrong here. So I went in the basement. I walked down, and the strange thing was there was no marks in the ceiling below that. And I'm like, what is going on here? There's definitely water. Well, we walked down by the hot water tank, and they had it boxed in on the floor, and they had used a Hilti gun to shoot in 2x4s. So what had happened was it created a swimming pool where it leaked. They had 2.5 inches of water. And I looked at it, I go, your hot water tank's leaked, and that's what's causing this above. And he said, oh, I didn't know that was leaking. I said, I wouldn't have either if I didn't see it. You basically created your own swimming pool in the basement. And then I went over we had some cast iron weights from working out, and they were pure orange rust. And I said, you've got a high moisture content down here. I said, what needs to be done is you need to get that replaced. You need to get this basement dry, get a dehumidifier down here, and then we can come back and replace the boards up on that area that were all cupped. I said, you have enough left over from the box that we left behind for you that we can do this for you. And that cured the problem.
Well, Ryan and I go back so far. We're big movie buffs. We go back forever talking about My Cousin Vinny. It's the number one thing I use when I inspect the floor. Do the laws of physics cease to exist in your hardwood floor? It's just look me in the eye and tell me, well, my cousin, the painter, says that you sold us green lumber. It's always some stupid story. Can we look at the science of this, please? Ryan, ask this man how he got into all this. And how do we all get into this in the first place?
What's your story? How did it start for you?
Well, I was actually moving furniture for a moving company when I was 19 years old, 19 into 20, and I was delivering appliances for a appliance slash flooring lighting store. And I did it on a regular basis. And my brother and a couple of one of my cousins and a bunch of friends I grew up with were all working at the same store. And the owner said to me one day, he said, if you're not ever happy, Mike, with them, why don't you come work for me? Because you're a really hard worker and you're likable. I said, okay, that'd be great. So about, I don't know, a month, 2 months later, I went back and we had a little powwow in his office and I took the opportunity to work for him. So what I did was I was working in the warehouse, mostly getting shelves stacked and all that. But every Friday night, he'd ask me to work the floor. So I went dressed in my other uniform instead of my warehouse uniform, and I dealt with people on that level, and I'd write up paperwork for them. We'd pick out flooring, lighting, and sometimes appliances as well. And that moved into Saturday morning, and then I was doing a little bit more. Then the economy kind of crashed in 1990, like everything went south. And I started to work for another flooring company because they had a big layoff there. We had, I think, 14 people working at the time. He laid off 8 of the 14. So he was down to his bare bones. And this other company that I went to work for had only been open for about 2 years at the time. And I worked for them for 9 years to the point where I felt like it was time for me just to move on. I knew a lot, and I attended every single seminar I had the opportunity to. Even before that, when I was working for the other company, I would sit down with every sales rep and I would dig their brain, trying to learn more. I didn't just want to be able to sell. I wanted to be knowledgeable. I wanted to know everything there was to know about the product before I saw it, so I felt confident in what I was selling.
You touched on a couple of things. What he saw in you, hardworking and likable. And we're talking about stories of problematic jobs that you've gone out and looked at over the years, and the accumulation of knowledge, the learning curve on when you're dealing with issues like that. It's really the formula for success: a work ethic, likability, and the accumulation of knowledge over the course of a journey is ultimately what leads to success. And so is that, you think, basically laid the groundwork for where you are today?
Yeah, I think being a likable person gets your foot in the door, it makes the customer feel more comfortable with you. And then I think the other thing that's important to me as well as them, when they start asking you questions, we had this discussion earlier, Ryan, you and I don't like to use filler words. Mm-hmm. I think that throws people in a different direction. When you ask somebody, how are you going to install this? And you don't go, well, you don't do that. You just say, my guy's going to come in. We'll be here between 8 and 9 o'clock in the morning. They'll start doing the demo. We'll have a dumpster outside. They'll throw everything in the dumpster. And the second day, this is what's going to happen. You start giving them exact line of the events that are going to happen, and it makes them feel comfortable beforehand. A lot of times they'll ask me, will you be on a job site? I said, I won't, but I'll be there every couple of days checking on everything and seeing the progress going along, because I need to be on the job sites and see what's going on. If there's something I didn't notice, or my guys call me up, hey, we got a problem over here. I'm like, well, what is it? Let's work through this. There really aren't any problems. There are only solutions. You just have to work through everything to get to that solution.
Well, you were saying before we started about how walk-in business is actually not typically the way you're finding new business. You're which is what it used to be back in the day. It was always, you waited until a customer came in. But you were talking about how the networking that you're doing and just referral business is really primarily where you're getting your business from. So can you speak to that a little bit? Like the idea of advertising, trying to bring people in, that's not really where it happens. What happens is you're building a reputation and you're getting referral business and you're networking, you're out in the community. And you were saying these are more local networking groups that you're in. So how you handle problems and how you interact with people is ultimately where your business is built. You speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think as far as I'm concerned, when I go out to a networking event, I'm there to talk about my business and listen to everybody else's business and what they do, mm-hmm. and how can I help them and how can we all help each other and grow. It isn't me. That just isn't something, that's not a recipe for moving forward. A recipe for moving forward is how can I work with other people? How can we all work together as a group? So my networking groups really do help each other build within the group. If I have somebody that needs a landscaper, I'm going to reach out to my landscaper. If I have somebody who needs an attorney, I'm going to reach out to the attorney in my group. And that's how we work with each other. And I just did a job yesterday. It's really interesting. They're rebuying the home. The gentleman lived in the house years ago, and his wife is from Nova Scotia, and they need a multiple type of situations going on. They have a painter going on, have an electrician going on there. They have they have me going in, they're doing the floors. They also have a mason going in there. And all these guys are from my group. They're all part of my networking group. And we all work together and we all go there. First thing I said to the customer, when do you want this done? Well, how quickly can you do it? I said, well, I had somebody else supposed to do it next Monday. They haven't gotten back to me. Let me find out if that's going to happen. If that's not going to happen, I can do it. Well, the painter says, well, no, you can't do it because we're coming in there Monday. So I talked to the painter, and I'm not mad at anyone. I'm not upset with anyone. We just work together to make everything go good for the customer. I was also able to give the customer a name of a moving company who I've met through networking, and they were able to get everything moved out of there. The painter was able to get his part done. The electrician, everybody worked together. We don't work against one another. We respect each other, and we don't ever get angry with the situation. We just work through it. That's how you build a business.
Yeah, Steve, we talk about it all the time, right? The difference between being transactional and being relational. With transactional, you're always starting at ground zero, trying to get something out of an interaction. When you're relational, you don't have to get something out of every interaction. You're building a relationship that ultimately is going to culminate in the benefit to all parties.
It's well, you saw we just had a retail person walk in, which we don't sell to the public. Whole different transaction. I don't know them. They could take up hours of my time. We know when a customer comes in. I know when it's a customer because they come straight for the counter. When a guy doesn't come in the door, it means they've stopped out front. They've got to look at everything. And now. You've been around forever, Mike. The deal is you and I together, we already have a resume. I know you're a pro. I know I'm a pro. We speak the same language. We kick it right off. When two pros that do not know each other get in a room, I always say it's like pissing around a lamppost. I've been doing this 28 years. Well, I've been doing it 40. Well, I took my father's business over. Well, I do install, sand, and finish. Well, you throw your resume out so fast until everybody gets comfortable. And you just said it, Ryan. Once you develop a relationship with somebody, everything moves forward from there. You have empathy. You understand people's flaws. You understand how quick they move. Like, Mike, you come in. You don't have any time. I know what you want. You go, I want paper. I want poly. I want wood. I'm out of here. See you. Bye. The new people need more time. They'll be like, I don't know. What should I do with this floor? And like you said, Ryan, a part of that now I have to be mentor, trainer for some people, and other people, they already got it done.
So these are things that have to be learned over time. Who's influenced you? Like, who can you point to somebody or maybe more than one person early on that you look back and say, he or she had impact on me, and I've over the years retained the way they touched me in some form or fashion?
I think a lot of times it's what somebody said as a phrase, maybe. Being part of those networking groups, there was a gentleman there who was an IT person, and he always said, you don't want to chase the dollar. You want the dollar to chase you. That really stuck with me, and I wanted to be that person. I wanted to be able to have people come to me instead of me chasing them. Advertising is a way of chasing people. I think, in social media, I don't really feel like I'm chasing people. I'm showing people what I'm capable of doing. Then you can make your decision based on that. Do you want to come with me or do you want to go with someone else? I don't normally have somebody come in and say, well, I'm getting 7 quotes and, it's 200-foot bedroom. That's not my customer. And this is nothing negative. I don't like dealing with towns because when your town calls you up and says, well, we're looking for quotes, I don't really want to deal with the town because they're looking for the lowest quote. Every single town, because they've got a budget to
So they got a fiduciary responsibility.
Correct. And they've got that to the taxpayers in the town. So I don't like to deal with that because I know I'm not going to be the lowest bidder. And the lowest bidder to me is just, it's not a good place to be. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be the highest either because you look like a thief. I like to be in the middle somewhere. And more than anything, I just want to be able to show my highest skills. A lot of times when you are the lowest bidder, you're probably paying your guys the lowest amount as well, or you're using a subpar product. And that's not what I want to be known for. I want to be able to go into anyone's home, whether it's a 1,000 square foot home or a 10,000 square foot home, and give them the best product and service possible.
You're a value guy.
Correct.
You're going to give them what their value. Let me ask you this: you ever get this one? Because way he's speaking, Ryan, is like a pro. They already know the situation that's coming. You ever get this one especially when you first start out, and someone will say, "Listen, I'm a builder. I'm a developer. I've heard good things about you. Here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you one job to try out, but you're going to have to give me the lowest. And I promise that down the road, I'm going to make it all back up to you."
Yeah, that's just a game.
That's
a salesperson.
You're never getting more than a dime out.
Nope, I have no desire. I had a customer, this is going back about 7 or 8 years. He called up, he said, I hear really good things about you, exact same situation. I went up to the job site, he was building 12 houses, and he said, we worked through the whole job site, we gave everything, and I did feel good with him. He seemed like a decent guy. He said, well, I need to be at this price range. I said, I can't do that. What do you mean you can't do that? Well, I want to use you. I said, well, I'd like to do work for you, but I can't do it for the price that you want. And he said, well, I heard good things about you. And I said, and I appreciate that. And I said, I hope they're all true. I said, but I can't do it at the price you're asking. Well, I'm going to give you all the houses. I said, it doesn't matter to me. I just can't do it at that price. I'm not going to dumb myself down to make more profit for you and make everything hit the numbers you want to hit. And he's an older builder, and I don't think he'd built in a little while. So he had a certain price range that he was already predisposed to.
In 1975.
Yeah, yeah, pretty accurate. And I said, I just can't do the job. I said, I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope everything goes good for you moving forward. I've had a lot of other people over the years say, well, you need to do it for this. And I'm like, I can't do that. I said, but if you need to go with somebody else, I do understand that, and I hope the best for you. And that's an honest way of leaving the job. And I would say, I don't know, 75% of those people call me back, and they say, you know what, we're going to go with you. I've had a few people recently, and they said, I had 5 quotes, and you were second from the highest, but you make me feel the most comfortable, and I feel confident in you. I said, well, you can be confident in me, and you will get a great job. Had a woman recently we did a job for, and when the job was done, she was the nicest lady. She came in very hard, very straightforward. There was no smile on her face, and I said, okay, she's definitely the kind of customer I want, because I can't read her. And she called me back later on. She goes, I wanted to let you know I went with you because I like you. She says, you seem like a nice guy and you seem honest, and you were by far the most knowledgeable person. So she had 5 quotes. It was a good-sized job, and I was 4th from the highest or 2nd from the lowest, however you want to look at it. And she said the reason was that I just feel like you're going to give me a job. She gave me a great review on Google, and then she reached out to me and asked me if I knew a plumber. I gave a plumber's name. She reached out to me after that and said, he was the nicest guy. I'm like, thank you so much for everything you did for me.
Yeah. So much about business is people buy from people they like. It's just that simple.
You hit it on the head. That's one of the terms that we use frequently in my networking groups. People buy from people they like. Being likable isn't always enough. It's also being knowledgeable. When somebody starts doing research, and Google can be dangerous, YouTube can be dangerous, they can also be helpful. They don't have all the answers. Experience is where the answers come from. And I think a lot of young guys who come into the field think they know more than the guys who've been around longer because we're not tech savvy or whatever the reason happens to be. But we are. We are very savvy, and we really do know the products. And you may be able to give us information. I don't ever dumb anyone down who's younger because they're younger. You can show me something that I don't know. It's like, oh, I didn't think of that. That's a great idea. So always keep and be open-minded with everyone. But at the same time, don't hold back on somebody that's young, and don't hold back information. I think one of the biggest problems we have in the blue-collar industry and the trades is everybody wants to hold that information and just hold it real tight like it's everything in the world. If you don't give the younger generation the opportunity and the information they need, then you're doing a disservice to, Gen Y that's coming out, or the millennials or whatever. Just always be open-minded and listen to people.
Are you mentoring anybody?
I'm not really mentoring anyone, but if anyone asks me a question, I will give them an honest answer. I won't give them a half-wit answer or a sarcastic answer. I'm going to be honest with them and say, this is what I've experienced. That doesn't mean it's 100% right, but here's what I've dealt with. This is how I've dealt with it.
Well, you just said it. It's your portfolio. Now, Ryan and I are distributors, so we have thousands of customers. And people will say, who should I have do my house? I go, there's 5 I know of, 4 I can't afford, 1 I wouldn't let in my house. You said it. Like down in Florida, if they come in, they either sand finish or you're an installer. If they do both, they're from New York City. That's just how it is. Here, you just said young guys. Young guys can pull off an install if they're crafty. They might be your do a decent sand and finish, but can they sand and finish a wide plank floor with an aniline dye and a stain and a water-based finish? There are levels to their competency. People ask for names like, what are you doing? Pre-finished. I have one of the best floor companies in the world, and they only like to install sand and finish. They hate pre-finish. Some people do pre-finish because they know they got to slow down and take their time and not ding the floor up. What's your resume look like? Do you have teams that do things? You do everything? You'll take on anything? Or are things that are your expertise?
There's not much that I won't take on, but I don't step out of what I feel is a comfort zone. Right. If had somebody ask me to do something that I've never done before, I said, let me think about this and I'll get back to you, because I want to process the question that they asked or what it is exactly that they're asking. If somebody says to me, I want this floor to look like a water on a calm day, it's like, no, I don't want to do that job for that person. That's not my client.
Right.
If somebody says, what's it going to look like when you're done? I'm going to say it's going to be very smooth and it's going to be done properly, because that's the truth. Smooth is not the same as a water finish. You know what I'm saying? I don't mean water-based. I mean just a clear finish. And I explain to them what their expectations are. We do a lot of jobs that no one else will touch. I had a customer over in Franklin, Mass. 2 years ago. I walked in, and she wanted to put LVP down. And I don't want to get into LVP because I'm not saying anything negative about it. It's got a place in the industry, but I think it's completely oversold, and it's put in bad situations. It should never be put in a room that has any type of roll to it or any type of deflection on it. If you read the guidelines, it's 1/8 of an inch over every 10 feet for deflection. Very few homes have that. Concrete basements, a lot of them will. So when you put that in a concrete basement on a new home, I say new, I mean the last 15, 18 years, you're probably not going to have any issues at all. But you put that in a kitchen that's got a roll to it, there's a good chance that you're going to have a problem. The reason you have a problem for it is it's not stuck directly to the floor, it's floating. Only thing that's holding that together is a small tongue and groove. You start walking on that tongue. I mean, Ryan, you're a good-sized guy. You walk across that tongue, you snap a little piece off, and then you go back a month later, you snap another little piece off. Then you snap another piece off the side. All those little pieces, the integrity of the floor is gone. So now what you end up with is a floor starting to shift high and low and side to side. So you get a high-low, you start to chip the edges of it, and it gets worse and worse over time. Pretty soon the job has failed. I had a job last year we did. Customer had called me up. It was a contractor I deal with. I went out there, met with them, and the previous installer, and I don't want to get into it too much, but they used pieces of the LVP to shim the floor to make it level. They ripped down little 2-inch by 5-inch pieces and used them as shims everywhere. I'd never seen anything like it. It was just a complete horror show, and the job failed. What we had to do is we ripped everything out. We had to pour 7 bags of self-leveling concrete to make everything level and feather it out, and then we were able to do the install. Customers had no problem since we did it, and that's because it was done properly.
Ever say no to a job for the specific reason that you didn't agree with what the customer wanted you to do?
I have. If a customer says, I want it done this way, I say, I can't do it that way. And they're like, well, that's the way I want it done. I'm like, I can't. We can't do a job wrong. I would rather not do a job than have to be married to that job as time goes on, because being married to a job is, oh, I'm going to call you in a month. Oh, I got to call you 3 weeks after that. Oh, I got another problem. That's the kind of job you don't want to deal with. It's not worth the aggravation.
Learn that from experience?
Oh, that's my favorite. You read that. My favorite saying is was experience is the result of good judgment. Good result is a judgment of experience, and experience is often the result of absolutely poor judgment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a learning curve. So, backing up a little bit, we've talked about the development of how your philosophy on doing business. How did it all start? Like, do you remember those early days? How did you get it off the ground? How did you get past those initial moments of, okay, you're in business for yourself, now what kind of thing? You got anything you can pinpoint as a turning point or anything like that?
Well, I knew right off the bat the thing I didn't want to do was, as I said earlier, dumb myself down. Remember, we had a job first 6 months we were open, and I'd given the customer a quote. The customer came back and said, well, I got it from another store, and this is the price they gave me. I said, well, you know what? I think you should go with them because I can't match that price. I knew that it wasn't going to benefit me to do the job at the price she wanted just to get the job. That's not the way to run a business. And the other company did it, and there was very little profit in it. It was almost like it was done intentionally. So I said, you know what? I don't play the war game with pricing. Coincidentally, another customer called and looked for the exact same week that these people were looking for. It was a much bigger job and much more profitable. Had I taken the other job on, I probably would not have been able to squeeze this other one in. So I was able to give my full focus to this other job and make a very fair profit that I was looking to make.
That's smart. When I started my company and everybody was working for $1.50. I was at $2, which was insane. And people first thing they go after is the price, right? But I was a referral, and I would say, hold on, do you have a pencil? And I'd give them some names, and they go, who is this? It'd be 3 of my competitors. And they go, why are you giving me that? And I would say, I am not the Kmart of flooring. And it was interesting because it was a polite way of insulting them. Because they would go, oh, well, I'm not a Kmart shopper. I'm like, yes, you are. You want me to do really good quality work. You've heard of our name. There are plenty of new guys out there that'll work for much less than I am, and you'll have to contend with that. I'm not saying they're good or bad. I'm saying we deliver. The reason you got my name is it's good, but we are not Kmart. I'm in this to make a profit. You're not in business. Profit is not a bad word. It's a good word. You should be in business to make a profit. That's what pays people's bills, keeps the business going, put my kids through college. Like you're saying, you have a choice in business. Be a hack, be very good, be elite, whatever it is. What is your resume for flooring? You just said it.
You're right. And I think a lot of times a customer will come in, and I don't ever want to be arrogant. That's a really bad vibe to put off to a customer. We don't want to be arrogant ever. And we also don't want to be passive aggressive. But I've had customers walk in, and they're just, I had a customer walk in the store. This was, I don't know, within the last 6 or 7 months. He came in, sat down at the front counter. I was dealing with another customer. And I walked over and I said, can I help you? He goes, yeah, I need the name of your carpet installer. I said, did you buy carpet for me? He's like, no, I got my own carpet. I got it somewhere else. I said, well, why don't you get a name from them? And he said, well, just give me your carpet installer's name. I said, I'm not going to give you my carpet. Well, why not? I said, because you didn't buy the carpet for me. I said, why would I do that? And he was not happy. I don't even want to get to what I want to say, but he was something else. So he said, well, I would never give your name out. I said, well, I'm sorry you wouldn't give my name out because you didn't get your way. And he walked out of the store.
Right.
And the customer I was waiting on, he looked over and he said, what an ass.
There are a percentage of the population, and there always has been, that just do not understand how business works. Not necessarily their fault. They're in another profession, but they don't see how profit is made in an establishment. And so they come across that when they like, you don't understand what I'm doing here. Like, we are here to make a profit.
I say penny wise and pound stupid. Like everybody, there are the people. I'm married to one. I used to say when we
that's going to get completely.
Yeah, don't worry
about
it. She knows this because when we have a problem with the car, I'm like, oh boy, I know in my head $300, $400, $1,200 where it all starts. I know for a fact that they're
Carnauba wax.
They're gonna go. She's like, right. We're gonna go 3.
Perfect.
The tires are $700. I got a tire. I'll bring the tires. You put them right, Ryan. Like, I know my wife would be like, I'm going to call Henry Ford's family and I'm going to tell them that I want a carburetor direct. Like, women have this anything where they want to go straight to the manufacturer and be proud that they cut everybody out of everything, right? It's the same thing. It's like these people want. What are you doing? You're trying to. Their mission is not a good floor. Their mission is to save money, and they don't realize the bitter taste of what happens when someone cuts a corner. It's a really bad way to do business.
I don't know this man. I've never met him before in my life.
Ryan Baker, you are a peasant in my facility.
You know what's funny is you get a lot of people that walk in and they start to size you up, and they're trying to figure out how much you're making on a job. First of all, it's uncomfortable for them, or if it isn't uncomfortable for them, you know who kind of person they are.
Yeah.
But they'll be like, well, I know you pay this much for that, and you probably pay you guys this much, and you're making this much. And it's like, really, if you think that, Go somewhere else because you're wrong.
Oh, that's where you bring out, this is what I'm paying for this building. This is what my payroll is. This is what my insurance is.
My electricity, my workers' comp, my liability, my insurance for my vehicles, my monthly payment on my vehicle.
SDI,
gas.
SUI, state, social, FICA, everything, all the matching. I just like to interject at this point that Brian Baker told me that his wife's from Texas and is a terrible driver, just to kind of balance it out there.
I heard the same thing. That's what he said.
There you go.
It's projection. Projection. Oh, my. It's just projection.
So it's funny. I'll tell you a Texas story. Had a customer one time. I was in my store, and it was a really snowy day. Probably had 4 or 5 inches on the ground. This woman pulls in an SUV, and she was going a little too fast. I'm like, oh, no, she's coming through the glass. She's coming through the glass. And she caught just before she came through the glass. She parks. She walks in. She goes, in a Texas accent, this stuff really is slippery. I said, where are you from? She says, Texas. I've never driven in snow in my life. I go, go easy. It is not fun.
That explains a little bit of what's going on the roads, right? Yeah. So, what's your impression of the business in general? We've talked a little bit about it, but how it's changed. You've been doing this over 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
My 41st year.
You're 43 years old. You've been doing this for 41 years.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Right.
So, what's changed?
It's honestly, I remember the days when guys would put down 3 straight coats of oil, and you'd end up with peeling between the joints, paneling, and we never knew what was causing it. I mean, we're talking 1990, 91, 89, 92, and the customer would have problems, and now I see a lot more clearly because I educate myself. I think when you shut off your education ideas, you've pretty much shut yourself off from the industry in general. I don't know it all, and anybody who says they do is where the problem is. I always want to learn more. I mean, I talk to Steve regularly. I talk to you regularly. I'm not somebody who thinks they know it all. I'm always looking for more knowledge in the flooring. What am I not hearing? We talked about water-based a while ago, Steve, you and I, and oil-based has always been a great product. It still is a great product. But there are options. VOC compliance is, it's VOC compliant, but water-based, there's really no smell. And the hardeners you use in Traffic HD, for instance, that's the way to go. I mean, if you want an old school floor, or you typically get this as a comment from a homeowner. Well, my uncle said the oil base is the best. Oil base is a great product, but it's old school. That doesn't mean it's the only option these days. And they'll say, well, I want something without a smell. Well, the oil still have a smell, and it's going to linger for 12, 14 days. And they're like, oh, I don't know if I want that. And I said, well, is there another option? I said, well, for a little bit more money, you could go with a water base. Well, I heard water bases weren't that great. I go, well, depends on what water base we're talking about. There are some low-end water bases that I wouldn't use in my doghouse. I said, but if you go with a product from Bona and you use Bona HD Traffic, you're getting a really, really solid floor. People don't always understand what wearability means versus durability. So if I were to take a piece of sandpaper and I were to rub floors, you can start to see the difference, because when you have shoes on, you get the sand on your floors. It gives you an idea what's going to happen to your floor. Or if you walk in with shoes, you get like a drum test like they do with...
There's a drum test. You can hear them playing right there.
I did it on purpose. You get the drum test, you get a pounding on carpet, and that gives you the longevity of the carpet. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get the idea of what's going to happen with your floor. So you start doing research, and everybody does research these days. Yep. 9 out of 10 customers come into my store with some form of knowledge. Whether it's incorrect or correct, they come in with some knowledge. And you just have to decipher what is correct and what is not correct, and you explain to them why what they say is true or what is not true.
Mike, he just struck on a really important point. You have the same resume that I do. Either a portfolio. What you look for when you're a consumer is you don't want the contractor that says, I don't know what everybody tells you, but I use red oak and oil. And if you're not using that, then you don't know what you're talking about. You and I have learned through experience over the years, there's a lot of different formulas and recipes, as I call them, for how to do floors. They're not all the same. There's so many different variables. If you and I didn't know how to use all those chemicals and all those things, there is no answer. One is better. In a lab setting, the best oil finishes in the world are only significantly similar to the worst water bases. The better water bases with hardeners are much more resilient, and they cost a heck of a lot more. But if you want what they've used for 75, 100 years, a really good oil-looking New England deep-toned finish, you use oil. Oh, by the way, you and I have learned, and when we're done, We're going to put a water-based finish coat over it so there's no smell. It cures in 6 days instead of 3 months. And every year that we come back, you'll have that beautiful charm, and we'll put on a water-based finish. It's just other people, they wake up every day. How long are you doing floors? 30 years. Every day they woke up telling people, I only use red oak and oil. Guys like you and I, we're not salesmen. People will say, Mike, you're a great salesman. No, I'm sharing my knowledge with you so that I do this job right, so you'll love the work that I do. I get paid and I move on with my life. These guys are out there, we call them mad scientists. They're experimenting in people's houses. And Ryan, how many floors this week have we gone over with some kid went out and they failed miserably, and I have to walk them through that, and they're so intimidated, and by the time we're done, they're like, I'm glad I talked to that guy. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to work through the chemistry. You and I do this all the time, Mike. He'll say, he gives me it real quick, and I'll go, okay, here's what you missed. And he'll go, you're right. And he'll go back in and fix that. That's what pros do. That's the language that we
humility is the key to teachability. My father told me when I was a kid, you're either going to have 30 years of experience or you're going to have 1 year of experience 30 times. And this business of I've done it this way, I've always done it this way, that dig my heels in and say I know better because of how long I've been doing it, it's foolishness. It's self-harming because you're basically saying I have nothing to learn.
Well, you and I talk about that all the time. And the reason I was born humble, and I'm not being conceited because that would be a fault, and I have none. So that's where it all comes.
I'm glad we established that right off the bat.
That's where
I have perfected humility
and don't do drugs. We talked about Ryan. I talked this. I had somebody come up to me. He's not far from here, and I said to him, Steve, you always tell me to be humble, and I realized the reason I'm so good at what I do is I was just born humble. But I go, Ryan, just swinging a miss, strike one right over his head.
We all have to be humbled. I remember early on when I started at Wood Pro, there was a day I was just kind of standing around doing nothing, and boss came over and said, what are you doing? And I said, nothing. There really isn't anything to do. And he said, if I have to find you something to do, you're not a leader. I mean, that was 30 years ago.
You'll
and
find
it's just
something to do.
fresh in my mind as it was the day he said it. I never forgot it, and there's always something to do.
Everybody needs, and you need leaders. Even in the military, there are sergeants that lead privates and privates that lead. Everybody has a chain. Like here, we don't have much of a chain.
Hierarchy.
I mean, with a hierarchy with titles. But as the business gets bigger, and with your company, people need that delegation of duty to what they do the best, like a football team. Or like I say to Joe all the time, Joe, you're not our starting pitcher. You are our dirt dog shortstop. Trot Nixon, Dustin Pedroia, and you know what? Don't try to be that other guy. We're not Kevin Van Beek, and I won't be, but we can learn from all of that. Same thing in flooring, right? You got a guy that can run an edger like a Swiss watch, and a guy that can drum, and guys that rush things and don't change the paper, and they destroy your equipment and your machine, and they're slopping poly. They're either going to learn it or they're not, right? How do you get through training the people you have? Isn't there a limit where you're like, I have too many people?
Yeah, I don't take on more work than I can handle. That's how I avoid that. If I've got a customer that's, let's say I'm doing a 2,000-foot sand and finish one week, I don't throw another 2,000 feet on top of that. I say, I can't do it. And they're like, well, I need it done that week. I can't do it. I'm sorry. And when I book someone, I don't move them to satisfy someone else's timeline unless the other person said it doesn't really matter when you do it. Then I will ask them, is it okay if we push it off a week? If they say, yeah, no problem at all. Other than that, they don't get moved. I adhere to my timeline because it's important. Your time is important. Your time is important. My time is important. So is every homeowner's out there. And I don't like to throw off their schedule. And some people don't like that to begin with. Other people, if say they're retired and they're moving from one house to another, they have more time than they can deal with. And it's okay for them. But the majority of people, that's not the case. And you were talking about, being stuck in oil in red oak. So I called you and I talked to both you guys about this one. I had a customer and they said they were selling the house and she wanted to get all the yellow out of the floor. She had maple. And I said, it was old maple. So I'm like, oh boy, I wonder if I can use Nordic Sealer on this. And I called you up and you go, no one that I know has used Nordic Sealer on maple. I called you up and you go, no one that I know has used it. I said, well, can it be done? And you both said, I don't see why not. And there's nothing that says you can't, even though it was primarily designed for white oak. It can be used on red oak, white oak. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And if it fails, then I made a big mistake and I learned. So we did it, and the job came out amazing. It blew my mind. I sent Marco the photos after it was done, and I said, Marco, check this out. It was incredible. And a lot of guys can't use Nordic Sealer. That is not an easy animal. That is scary. I had a customer.
It's a level 10.
Oh, it is. And my guys do a great job with it. Then we had the first time we used it, which was 5 years ago. I hadn't used it before, and we had little black pepper spots all over the floor. I'm like, what is this stuff from? And first I'm looking, I'm like, did my guy spill somewhere? It looks like ink, like somebody grabbed the ink and went with the ball missing in the ink and threw ink on the floor.
People think it's mold or
yeah, I didn't know what it was. And we never had that happen again. We've done, I don't know, 40 jobs since then. Not one has happened again since that one time. But again, it's just something you learn. And you've written articles on the black pepper look on Nordic Sealer. Well, this maple scared me even more because there's nothing to hide it. Maple's so stark, it's so tight, and the grain is almost impenetrable. Yeah. So, but when you use Nordic Sealer, it seals evenly. It doesn't look like a stain, which get the blotchiness. Even if you condition the wood, it doesn't take it evenly. With this right here, it took it evenly. It was beautiful.
Well, it's funny that so Ryan was asking me today, I had somebody on the phone, and I got to go to this other place because I'm hearing the tumblers click into place when people tell me what's wrong, and they'll skip things. And I go, no. Go back to what was your first grit sequence. All of that works up to what could be going wrong with the floor. And you just said it. Maple is a diffuse, porous wood. If you look under a microscope, there isn't a cell structure. Like when you look under red oak, it looks like giant cross sections of tennis balls. White oak, that tennis ball cell fills with silosis, so it looks like a hockey puck. Maple, there aren't any. And it's interesting because it's a very hard floor. They use it for gyms and bowling alleys. What's the softest one out there? White pine? People go, I'm going to stain it because it's pine. I'm going to blah, 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 blah. And it looks all whitewashed because even though it's soft, the cells are not open and porous and accepting stain like an oak floor. So I've spent my entire life learning this stuff, and every day I learn something new, but it does help me pick apart problems that people have. And sometimes it's a complete anomaly, and you never know what little kink in the system threw things out. I had a guy, whole floor contaminated. We knew it. We couldn't figure it out. So his guys came over to the shop. They're going to resand it all. And I go to put stuff in their machine, in their van, and I smelled it. I could smell it. And I go, did you guys bust open a can of WD-40? He goes, oh yeah, we threw the van. How'd you know? We threw the van, the buffer in the van, and the handle went through it. I go, damn it. I pull it out. His white buffing pads were full of WD-40. So he didn't know. He was putting a screen, which is porous, and buffing, and it was spreading WD-40, and they couldn't figure out why the finish was just beating up and going everywhere. We washed the floor with thinner, all new pads, all new brushes, all new everything. If that kid didn't show up, it would have been a mystery for life. We don't always know what the recipe is and how it got fouled. Ever know anybody that bakes anything and they go, oh, I forgot the baking soda? Same thing in flooring. I have people go, I used a $160 two-part, and I told my guys, we don't need the two-part, just get it done. They didn't put the hardener in it. That's ridiculous. That's like missing a whole part of the recipe. So like you said, you don't know, and now you're an owner. Now you have crews. You don't know that the guys in your van know everything that you know. You've got to separate them by what they do so well, and you can only have so many of those employees before they become so good they go off somewhere else. Running a business like you do is extremely complicated and can only get so big, right?
Right. I don't want to grow to the point where I grow out of my pants because it's not fun. I mean, I had a job a few years ago. I don't even know if you remember this. It was 4 or 5 years ago. We sanded and finished this floor, and we had these look like little white caterpillars stuck on the hardwood. I'm like, what is this? They're probably about half the size of my pinky, and there were white marks all over the floor. And you call me up, did they spill anything? I'm like, call my guys up. No. I called you guys up where the wood came from, and you're like, Mike, there's nothing in it that could have spilled on it. And I called you up. Finally, I sent you a bunch of pictures. You go, Mike, I think that's pitch. I said, from oak? And you said, yeah, it's very, very rare. But that's the only thing it's exactly what it is. I was clueless. I'd never seen pitch. I've done, I don't know how many thousands of jobs over the years, hundreds of thousands of feet.
Was it white oak?
It was, yes.
Okay, so it's sticky board syndrome. And it's rare, but you'll get boards they all have tannins. It's so saturated with it that when you're done, the exact individual board will bleed itself out. The whole thing will be, and it's sticky, and they'll go, the whole floor is dry, but not this one board. I go, And all around it, no, just the one board. I go, oh, high tannin content.
Yeah, I was lost. I'd never seen it. All these years I've been doing floors, I called my guys. He's like, Mike, I've never seen this before.
On a water-based finish, it will turn it into a gooey little, like you said, a little crumpled worm thing. And
Yeah,
it'll
this was
stay
oil-based, but it was still, it looked like somebody cut my pinky in half, and it was almost like a blondie white color.
soft. Wow.
And they were just, it was almost like quarter sawn vermiculations, but it was plain sawn. And they were just, I don't know if we had probably 15 of them, 18 of them, and they were scattered throughout. It just happened to be that lot of wood, and it wasn't defective. It was just something that, you said, Mike, it's really not defective. It's just something that's in the wood. Well, the customer didn't want it, and we went back and forth. So what do you want me to do? You want to rip it out and replace it? I'll do whatever you want. And they said, you know what? Can you just give us a discount on the floor? We'll live with it. I said, you know what? That's the easiest answer. And it wasn't anyone's fault. I took the hit because it wasn't my sand and finish guy's fault. It wasn't your fault. It was no one's fault, but you have to make the customer happy. And the end result is if the customer's happy with something that is unforeseen and you've worked through that, then everybody's happy.
Yeah. So many of these things come down to how you handle situations. Like success in business is all about handling situations. What's your management style? When, just in general, and then when issues come up, how do you handle those things?
It depends on what the problem is, but you always got to think of yourself as that homeowner and how happy would they be? You have to picture yourself as the one who's spending the money and everything else. And if it's something that you feel like you could live with, then you have to try and approach it differently. But there's points where things are just, I guess it's everybody's tolerance of what they can accept. We had a job going back probably 6 years now. Women wanted to sand and finish. She had white pine. It had been down for 40 years, and it was all hard cut nail from above. So we set all the nails, and we told her we had to set the nails. Number one, you can rip a drum when you're sanding. A number of things can happen. You don't want to have that happen, and you don't want to have silver nails everywhere.
Yeah.
So we sanded the whole floor down, and guess what? We had about 12 or 15 nails. What happened was they came back up from the vibration of the floor, and we hit them. And you don't really notice it necessarily when you're doing it, but we had a stained floor, which made them stick up more. I said, what do you want to do? And I said, we can come in here, we can reset them all, and we can color each one with an epoxy in each hole so that it's blended in. And I'm thinking to myself, how long is that going to take my guys to do? And she says, you know what? Just give me a discount on it. We're putting the house on the market anyway. We'll all be happy. And we did. And she was happy with everything. And again, it's something that's unforeseen. You just don't know what's going to happen until it happens.
So you made $700 to $1,000 on that job. You hit one nail, it's a $2,000 drum. Then you got to balance it. It could throw your machine off. And if that piece of metal gets in your dust bag and you put it out in their garage or on the lawn, it's going to catch fire. So there's all these little things that we have to be concerned about. Listen, owners are always concerned about this stuff. You're trying to finish a job at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and you only need 20 minutes to coat. And your guys are already out in the van going, aren't we going home? You're like, guys, if we take another 20 minutes and coat this floor, it locks it in. Tomorrow we can just buff and get out of here, and you want to go home. The workers don't always think like the mind of an owner, do they?
No, mentality is completely different. If I have an opportunity to get to a job site at, let's say, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm there for an hour and a half, now it's 5:30, and I try to put the quote together for them while I'm there, and that's the ability I have a lot of places don't. Because I know exactly what the product costs, I know how long everything's going to take, I can give a price, let's say 95% of the time on the job site. And a lot of other stores will say, we'll get back to you in a few days. Well, that few days turns into a week. Now you've lost a lot of trust in the homeowner that's looking to have the job done. And most hardwood floor people, sometimes carpet can do it, but hardwood floor people don't always give a price at the job site. And we're also not high pressure. And I'll say to them, this is the price. Why don't you take a photo of it, which is great now because they don't have to use the copier at the house. They take a quick photo of it. They get back to me the next day. Or sometimes they'll give me a price right there. They say, let's just do it. I had a customer a couple of years ago that had 2 other people out before me. Three were supposed to be there. One didn't show up, blew them off, which is not good. The other one was supposed to get back to them, had not gotten back to them. The other one had taken a week, and they still had gotten back to them. I walked in, measured it all up, I gave him the price. And he looks at her, and she looks at him, and he says, is that for everything? I said, yeah. He goes, that's exactly what we thought it would be. Why don't we just go forward with it? And the wife says, absolutely. And she says, just call the other people and just tell them we're all set. And that's a good feeling for me that I'm able to do that. And unfortunately for the other people, they didn't have the opportunity to put a price on. Would they have been lower? I don't know. Would they have been more? I don't know. But the customer felt comfortable with the price range I had already. And I think a lot of people today are having ideas of what's going to cost younger people, not older people necessarily. But I had a job a couple of years ago. This woman had a whole sand and finish on the first floor, whole sand and finish on the second floor, and install another 800 feet on the second floor so that the first and second floor were all the same wood. She had 2 sets of stairs, and both sets of stairs had bird cages at the bottom. So there was a lot of work there and staining and everything else, and they wanted a water base. We went through the whole scope of work with her, and I gave her the price right then and there. And she says, well, let me show you something. She pulls out a piece of paper. I was $500 off from where she thought it would be. She goes, I'm just going to pay you what you want. I'm going to call my husband right now. I'm going to cut you a check. I said, oh, I appreciate that. I said, did you have anybody else in? She said, yep. One guy has not gotten back to me yet. The other guy tried to sell me on LVP. And I'm thinking, I said, this is $1 million home.
Right.
You really want, she's asking you for hardwood. You're selling her on LVP.
Yeah.
That's really not a good way to deal with
wood's not in their wheelhouse.
No, it wasn't in their wheelhouse. They have a beautiful home. They wanted to keep the value. I mean, the National Real Estate Association had a article about 3 years ago, I think it was, on the value of hardwood going into a home. Sanding and finishing a whole house of hardwood is the number one way to upgrade the value of your home. The second most valuable dollar to relation is to install all new hardwood. And then after that, it goes to, kitchens and all that. But let's say you put in $20,000 into a whole new house on a house that's worth $600,000, you can get $720,000 on average for that same house as you would have without the wood. So you put in $20,000, you get $120,000. What kind of investment is that? The 401k isn't going to do that.
Yeah. No, it's funny you say that. I used to teach for the National Retail Lumbermen's Association, and they do drywall one day, and then I was the guy that did the hardwood flooring. I had to give a quiz on that. And I'd take a break at lunch, and I'd go, all right, I'm buying lunch for anybody that can go out in the lobby and bring me back a New England real estate guide. And there's a whole pile of them out there. And I go, that anywhere in there says this home features beautiful new carpets. Because you're paying per line. It was like $5 a line, and you want to put features hardwood flooring. That's the selling point right there. I was at a job yesterday looking at the people that gouged the floor out, right? And I go, they did all this work in your house while they were still drywalling, mudding, plastering, dragging appliances through. I go, I'd love to walk into somebody's house and drag that crap across a grand piano. A grand piano, a really good one, is a third the cost of this flooring in this house, which is the main furniture for your home. It is the showplace. And you're letting them work here with a flooded basement, all this other stuff that goes on. Do they not understand that we're dealing with something of value? People that make money don't go, and now I'm going to get that plastic floor we've been looking for. They want a rich mahogany desk, and they want all these lovely things, right? My kids just bought homes for supplemental income, and they're down the road, this, that, and the other thing. And my son is an engineer. He put LVT in everything, and it's absolutely beautiful, I got to say. He was right. He goes, Dad, I'm going to move in there eventually. I'll put hardwood flooring in. While I'm renting it, and I let them have a puppy, I let them have a dog, they're dragging stuff around, let them beat that thing up, and when I move in, then I'll put the hardwood flooring in. He's right. He would have put a hardwood floor in, and then had to have it all sanded and finished because somebody's going to trash it. Doesn't matter what. Right now, LVT is just a bookmark for future hardwood flooring. Yeah. It's just future business.
So, Mike, one of the joys of what Steve and I do on the distributor side is walking these roads with guys like yourself, and we have these conversations. This is just counter talk, like what we're doing right now. We have these conversations every day at the counter, and we're working through situations. What do you like? Just getting into your relationship with specialty forest products. What's important to you about a supplier? How have we, done well? And what are the important things that you look for when you choose a supplier?
I think the most important thing is just being conscientious of us as a store owner. We had a problem a while ago. I called you up and I talked to you. I talked to Marco. Well, coincidentally, Greg Arnold was in the area, and Greg just happened to be here. And we were doing a job. We had some wood that was mismilled. So
Greg from Wickham Hardwood Floors.
Yes.
Yeah, he's our, okay.
Yeah. Greg's great guy. Yeah. Super, super nice guy. So he walks in, and my guy took 2 boards. He goes, here, put the 2 boards together. Look at the difference between the sizes of these. And he's like, oh yeah. He goes, it was probably a 32nd of an inch off, but that's enough to throw everything out of whack. And he looked at it. He goes, I see what's going on here. He looks around. He goes, I can't line this up unless I can find all the ones that are a 32nd of an inch under 5 inches or 32nd of an inch over 5 inches. I have to set it up. He goes, it's just, so he said, well, I see there's a problem here and it's legit. He said, what do we do to make the customer happy? I said, well, let me offer the customer an X amount of money to make them happy. And if they say, yeah, great. If not, he said, we'll rip the whole thing out. There's something wrong here. It's legit. So there's no question. That went a long way with me. We offered the customer an amount of money and the customer says, yeah. And she says, that's fine. That works for me. Let's get the house done and I'll live with it. And I mean, if we didn't say anything, honestly, she might not have even noticed, but I noticed. And that's what's important to me is that I knew something was wrong there. And my guys knew something was wrong there. So that was a happy customer. That was a happy store owner. And everything went great. And now I feel comfortable with Greg on every level because of that.
Mm-hmm. So many times we've talked about how great relationships start with a problem.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody in our business knows problems will happen. I don't think anybody is under the illusion that we're going to avoid problems. It's all in how we deal with it. And over the years, we've had some doozies. We've had some. Yeah. I mean,
we had one 10 minutes ago.
We had one 10 minutes ago. Yeah, somebody just tried to take us for a lot of money, right?
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. But it's how we learn. I mean, what percentage of our education in this business has come from sitting in front of a webinar or going away to a school? Some of it, maybe. Overwhelmingly, our education comes in real time. We're dealing with real situations and thinking through it, and in some cases, making mistakes. And
something always comes up, and you know what separates the pros, and you can hear it when you're talking with Mike, is the minute something goes wrong, you and I cannot wait to be the problem solver. A lot of guys in this business, they're like, they're owed $5, $6, $7 grand. They shut their phone off and they go hide. They don't want to deal with it. It might be something that can be, that's what I do now. People call me to set up the job. They call me when it goes bad, and I get in and I tell people, you're all going to get your lives back soon. Let's make this work, and we work it through. You just said it. You need to know the wherewithal to go back and say, something went wrong on this job, and you never know, right? Basement flooded, radiant heat went on. I've been on a job with my brother coating the floor, and a cat and a dog chased each other right across our floor. Now we got poly everywhere. There's always something, but the pros never run and hide. They make it better. And boy, do the customers really appreciate that. They appreciate their floor, but they're like, we had a problem at my house and these guys fixed it. That's the key.
You never want to have that reputation of he'll pick up the phone if he thinks he's going to make a sale. But if there's a problem, you can't reach him.
Yeah.
You never want that reputation.
You don't. And I think my own personal opinion is a lot of times you show your real character when there are problems. It's good to be easygoing and happy when the money's flowing and when everybody's happy and the jobs are going smooth. But when things go bad, if you're hot-headed and you don't know how to deal with it, you get frustrated, you get angry, you're not going to go far in this business or any business, especially in the trades. No one wants to deal with someone like that. I don't, you don't, and you don't. So if things go bad, I call up. I never get angry. I'm like, we got a problem here. What can we do to fix this?
We haven't lost a patient yet. Even in, because I think the way people demand everything immediately. Listen, you walk in a store, you want to buy something, and it's classic of anybody in this country. They don't have it. They're out of stock. What's the next thing you say? I'll take that one. Is there a discount? They want the one off the shelf. Everything wants satisfaction now. Like you said, it's about addressing the situation, making these things happen. And you know what? It goes in our memory bank. Like, Ryan, you'll ask me all sorts of crazy stuff. I have stuff locked up in my head, and I'll remember, that fogged floor you just asked me about, that happened to me once. Half the floor, literally half of an entire living room was fogged, and the other half was not. And I said, it's got to be transferable from what we're seeing. We went in the basement. We didn't know these people's house. They built the addition, half of it over an open heated basement, half over a wet, muddy crawl space. All we had to do was put some heat in. You have to break these things down and analyze them. And when you're running a business, now you're the guy that's taking the hit on everything. And some people take it personally. There's pimples in my finish, and you better do something about this. I've walked back to the job that day with a check and said, here, keep your money. We would never cash this until your job is right. These things happen. No one's going to die. If we live through this, I'll buy you a drink. We haven't lost a patient yet. It's hardwood flooring.
You're right. And we've had so many issues. You think back over the years and, I don't know how many floors I've done in my life. Let's say 10,000. All right. And I remember we had this one job we did, my crew had done it, and it was over radiant heat. It was 2.25 over radiant heat. And my guys hit 5 different spots of coils on the radiant heat. So the floor's cupped, and then I got a call from the contractor. He says, Mike, we got a problem over there. The floors are really cupped. And I'm like, well, let me see. I walked in there, and it looked like the ocean. I almost threw up. And it was, I don't know, 800, 900 feet, wide open floor plan. I'm like, this isn't good. I'm like, well, I said, the contractor, give me a couple hours. I said, let me see what I can resolve this. I called up the NWFA, and the person who was on standby in the technical department said, you know what? You're probably happy it's over radiant heat. So what do you mean? They go, ask the homeowner to turn the heat on and see what happens. I'm like, okay. So they turned it on. 3 weeks later, I told the customer, told everybody what was going on. Contractor calls me, he goes, you been to that house yet? I go, no, I got some special ordered area rugs that just came in. I'm going to drop them off. He says, it's almost gone. I walked in the house. It was 90% back to flat. And a few weeks later, it was flat. I could not believe it. I thought it was going to be the worst situation ever. I thought we were going to be demoing everything out and try to reinstall again over radiant heat. And we're going to have the same problem. It just all worked itself out. And that's because I didn't jump the gun, flip out on my guys. I didn't flip out on anyone. I didn't get angry with anyone. I said, let's work through this. And I was able to talk to somebody that had more knowledge than I did with that situation.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's a smart thing, Brent, about Mike. This is probably why you're not even...
A lot of smart things about Mike.
You shush.
Hey, we talked about humility a while ago, and there you are propagating all. This goes all the way back to, like, you're not even in my area. How do we even know each other? Because and it's a lot like me. That's why I love you. Is that you look at it and you go, I don't know absolutely everything, but I would like to. Who does? Before the internet, we would go find somebody, like go find Howard Brickman or somebody that I know and go, tell me. He found me because Marco, who used to work with me, is our outside salesman, and said, well, Steve might know. And you were open to listening. I'm like, this guy actually is asking for help. Let's knock our heads together. That's how you do it. Go out and find out. Your resume only gets better. Your technical aspects get better.
They do. And I mean, look what happened last year when I ran into that situation with that install, and I called you up. I said, I said, this customer's going to be giving you a call. I said, it's not a good job, and I need to redo the entire building. It was, a couple thousand square feet of wood, whole new set of stairs. And I explained it to you, and I didn't say anything negative. I just said, it's not good. That's the words I used. And you went out there and you wrote up a very long report. I'll let you, tell that part of it.
It was so I tell people now, I go, listen, my reports are sick. They're like 27 pages. I want to tell you, they're not a report. The first page will answer it. I'm creating a manual for me and your floor team. So down the road, when we do go to fix this, I can quickly go through it and look at my notes and know what went wrong. In my career, I've learned something. You never go in and badmouth somebody who's listening. You got a hack in here or whatever. And I want to do a magazine article about this floor he's talking about. I have the photos. I have hundreds of photos because admittedly, I would have to say, this is the biggest hack job I have ever seen. I couldn't even protect this guy if I wanted to. I would never. He's being nice. I went down there. Here's the giveaway. He had been there 3 weeks. And I said, where is he? And the homeowner goes, oh, every day he packs his stuff up. And I go, every day? He's been here 3 weeks. Why would someone pack up their flooring every single day from the third floor? He goes, yeah, why would they do that? I go, because he knows you're going to fire him. It's a white oak, 100 and whatever year old house. He's patching it with red oak boards with nails in the top. And on those boards are X's from the side of the saw that he was going to cut. He didn't sand the pencil marks out. He's putting in 3-inch long patches instead of like a decently long board. His edger has ripped the wall boards apart. He's got wrong species of wood. On the third floor, you could tell he gave up on life because he skipped every closet. On the second floor, he did the closets, but just gave up on sanding the corners. Worse, I'm coming down the stairs and the guy goes, be careful. He sanded them, but they're falling apart. He just wanted to coat them, but if I step on them, you would literally fall over. It's broken. And in the downstairs, it was a very, very difficult old tar kind of mastic sanding job over like oak floors. he just gave up on life and decided to, like a railroad track, run across all the flooring sideways with 12 grit. And and he's hitting all the base trim, so all the old lead paint is flaking into everything. And every room he completed, it's like he went living room downstairs, upstairs back bedroom, third floor kitchen, back down to the first. Like, can't you just go from one part of the house to the other, pay the man, approve it, and he can start the next one? It was a disaster. And I'm going to throw some numbers at you. I think Mike had quoted something like $18,000, and this guy got it done for 12. And
It's debatable that he got it done.
oh well, no, the owner was an elevator repairman, and him and his wife own several properties. They can rent like what, five units in this house. He goes, it's $17,000 a month. As much as I'd like to just move everybody in, these floors are terrible. So Mike went in and he said, basically, I hate to tell you, but I can do this, and it's going to charge you now $18,000 because now I got to redo this guy. And I have the photos. What you did was miraculous. I mean, it is night and day. I wish that contractor could have watched what you did, because I know that poor guy was in pain. He was scared to death. I bet he moved to another country. He's looking at it going, I just screwed up, $15,000 worth of flooring.
Yeah, in all fairness, situations like that, everybody starts someplace, and it might have just been a situation where he got in over his head, and there was nobody there to help him through
He
it.
could have at least stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. I mean, this guy was right.
Oh yeah.
Wow. But what they did was beautiful. They never badmouthed the guy. Neither did I. But they fixed it, and it spoke for itself. That guy called me. He goes, "Dude, these look amazing."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully that guy knows better.
He does moving forward, and I could tell everybody the same thing. When I give a quote, if, I've had a lot of people say, well, I got it for this much. I'm like, well, you know what? You have to do what you want, what you think is
Yeah.
best. It's your money. It's not mine. If you think that you're going to get a good job for that price, then, I hope everything works out for you. And if it doesn't, give me a call and I'd be glad to help you out in the future. And that was one of the jobs where he called me back and says, I need your help.
Yeah.
We had a customer recently who had LVP down, and I walked in and I looked at it, I go, this LVP is done incorrectly. I said, what do you mean? I go, they didn't rip out the kitchen. They went over the old kitchen floor down to the new floor, which is a 1/4 inch difference in height. I said, and they scribed to the baseboard. That's wrong. This is right. I said, everything's done here wrong. I said, I don't know who did it, but I'm going to tell you what's done wrong. And I said, okay. And then he said, well, what's it going to cost? I said, we have to rip everything out, including the floors, to make everything the same level. And this is how we're going to do it. And I gave him the price. His eyes almost popped out of his head. I said, I know you're shocked by the price, but I'll be honest with you. I don't know who gave you the first price. It probably was 1/3 of what I just did, maybe less, but mine's going to be done right.
Mm-hmm.
And they did it. They had somebody else do it again. And guess what? They did it wrong again.
Yep.
They've hired somebody else. Now he's got 2 floors done incorrectly.
Yep.
So now you come in, you give him the same price. And I said, well, this has gone up a little bit in the last couple of years since the last job. And, it's a little bit more than it was last time. He says, whatever it is, I just want to get it done. My wife's not happy with me. And, a lot of times we try to find a happy medium between everything, but going for the lowest price all the time, you really get what you pay for sometimes.
So as we start our descent to land this plane, where do you see the business going, the market, the industry? Where do you see it going?
Well, obviously the economy isn't as great as some people would like to portray.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still a struggle out there. I think there's 2 kinds of people out there. There's the people who go out and give a price, and because they're not getting a lot of work, they'll undercut themselves just to get the job. That's a recipe for failure in the long run. You can't keep on doing everything for an undercut price. Those are the ones who are going to suffer in the long term. I go into a price. I don't overprice them because I don't have as much work. I don't double it so I can make more money off it. That's wrong too. I just give them the same price I would have all along. Again, I don't care if it's a 1,000-foot job, a 10,000-foot job, or a 500-foot job. The price is the same. The only time I ever charge more is if there's a lot of traveling. Although last year we did a job up in New Hampshire, and that was the one that you and I worked on together, and I appreciated that. And it was for a friend of me and my wife's family member, and we went up to New Hampshire to do the job for her. It was a whole house installation, and it came out beautiful. She'd had a price up in New Hampshire somewhere that I almost threw up over when she told me the price. It was sky high. Well, a lot of times people who are in vacation areas look at people with second homes and say, oh, they got the money. And again, I don't like to juice anyone. That's my key word, is juicing people. I don't feel comfortable doing that. My price is fair. My price is in the value of what you're getting, and you will get good service as well as a good installation and a good product.
Is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah.
Really quick, you bring up a point. I used to, when I worked down in Boston, I had a map of from Maine to wherever. People go, "What's the cost of flooring?" I go, "Take a look at this. Let's start at Boston. Everybody's working for $1. Now move in both directions. Just outside of Boston, everybody's getting $1.50. Oh, now you get to the Cape, the islands, and the recreational lakes of New Hampshire, $2.50 a foot. Now you're out on Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket, or you're up in the White Mountains, and you're paying $6 a foot. And you know what? We're getting towards Providence, Rhode Island. We're back down to $1 again. There's more volume of work. Right? With outside salesmen, right, Ryan? Some guys have huge territories because it's so rural, and other guys only need a small chunk of Boston to keep busy every day. Ryan, do me a favor. When we have so many different profiles and so many different types of customers, and one of the reasons you had said let's have Mike in first is because you're like the perfect profile, because you're work with us. You bring your business to us. We have to earn your trust, and we do. And then we work together technically in every facet. What makes Mike and people like him like the perfect profile for how we do business as a distributor?
He has a listening ear, so we can have a conversation.
What?
And if there's an issue, don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. If there is an issue, we can talk about it. We can discuss it. He's not hot-headed, which is important, because you can't, when things escalate, nothing good is going to happen. And if there's an issue, we talk about it. He's open-minded. I called him up the other day. I said, I got to show you this new product. He said, I'll be right over. Came in. We talked about it. He said, I think that could work. Probably not that. That's fine. That's the kind of input that we're looking for. So, yeah, in so many ways, you are an ideal customer. Pays his bills.
Get out.
Which is, listen, we don't we're not selling jewelry. So we, and it's important that you get paid. It's important that we get paid. If you're doing a good job and you're getting paid from your customer, we know we're getting paid.
That's right.
If you don't pay your bills, his young daughter, Hannah, will do an impression of you not paying your bills.
You want to take this opportunity to explain real quick how you got into the restaurant business, and you want to give a plug for your restaurant?
Yes, because I'm getting hungry.
So that's a great story. So long story short, my wife was working in the as an admin for one of the partners' businesses, two of the partners' businesses, and I was introduced to it. She kept on talking about them looking to do a restaurant, and I didn't think much of it. That's their gig. And then one day, one of the partners said, "Hey, anybody's looking to, make an investment and be a partner in this?" And I'm like, well, that's interesting. And the first person I called was my wife, and I ran it by her. And she goes, those guys are really good at everything they seem to do. Why don't we sit down and talk with them? So me and my wife, we're a partner, we're a team, and we sat down and we decided to do it. And I got to tell you, I mean, first of all, being Italian and having Italian descent, I like the idea of...
You're Italian?
You didn't notice that.
We were talking about biscottis and pizzelles before we started.
Frigadelle, broccoli rabe, it all involves food.
Broccoli rabe's a little bitter, but you know what? It's good.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny, my wife's an excellent cook, and we went through the whole thing with them, and we talked about locations, and it's been a journey. The journey's not over yet. It's there, but if you have an opportunity to stop by, either Tailwind Tavern, which is the restaurant side of our business, or the other side, which is actually, by the way, the Tailwind Tavern has one of the nicest bars you will ever see in your life. It is beautiful. I think it seats 40, and it's comfortable. We've got a lot of local beers on tap, and the other side makes the best pizza you've ever had. We have Neapolitan pizza. We have a large square sheet pizza, Sicilian style, and everything is made there. The dough is made there. We have high-end ingredients, sauce, homemade meatballs. It's incredible.
And a state-of-the-art oven.
And a state-of-the-art brick oven, correct.
You didn't use that online ordering, check off your boxes of pizza thing. I'll tell you why. The other night I picked up a pizza. You know what my wife did? She went down and checked everything. She unchecked everything. The pizza, it looked like a giant scab. It was the shell with the pepperoni.
A big sore.
She put cheese, no. Cheese, no, extra, no. She took everything off. And
she had dough.
Yeah, the kid at the counter goes,
pizza fleet.
sir, I'll make you pizza. He goes, I should have called this. Looked absolutely ridiculous. Yeah, that's my wife's ordering online again. But you mentioned Italian food. I was telling him earlier, this is how it started. I've now finally, we have an Italian in the family, my sister-in-law, and I love her. And we tease her like crazy, but we went out to an Italian restaurant and she's just fuming over there. I mean, the food is great, right? And she's just whispering. She's going, stems, stems. And so the waitress, the manager comes over, hears everything. She goes, I'm having a little problem with the broccoli, Rob. Tips, broccoli, Rob, are tips. What we have here are stems. She's like, well, ma'am, what we do is she goes, no. I'm Sicilian. Don't tell me how to cook broccoli loud. This is just the cut stems. They should have gone in the trash. The tips went to somebody else. Oh, she had an absolute fit. I'm like, what's broccoli, Rob? And she's like, it's what you're eating. Don't mess with an Italian at the dinner table. They'll invade Poland next.
We know that well. And this restaurant is in Hopedale, Massachusetts?
Yeah, One Menifee Way in Hopedale.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get
right on the airstrip.
That's what I was trying to get out of you, so anybody who wants to come and visit. Well, this has been a pleasure. Steve, any final thoughts?
Who are we talking to?
Steve.
Who am I? Why am I? What am I doing here? No, listen, Mike and I we bump into it. It's always fun whenever I bump into you because it's like, I know it's like the game is afoot. There's going to be a mystery. Like Marco will say, hey, Mike's going to call you. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Because all right, this is what I learned years ago. I would write magazine articles and here's a question for you. Ever played Trivial Pursuit?
Yes.
When I was in Florida, we were the only store in all of America to have Trivial Pursuit at Christmas time because my boss said, this stuff is going to be great. We bought a tractor trailer load of it and we're famous. What I learned is, what is the number one answer to a Trivial Pursuit question? The most common answer.
Answer, not question?
The answer to the question that's most commonly given in any version of Trivial Pursuit is, oh, I knew that.
Oh, I thought you meant the answer on the card.
Exactly. But this is what was happening. I'm writing these technical articles and detail, and I'm like, look what we've done here, like about what you and I have gone through. And people go, yeah, I knew that. I knew from the time you started. Like now they're Vinny Barbarino.
Italian?
Yeah, they're Vinny Barbarino now. What? Like he knew the whole thing, right? Bacon told me.
See a little Italian horn on your necklace there.
I got one. I got a pepper in the mirror. If I go on a date, I gotta have it. So it was funny because I go, all right, you know what I'm gonna do? This is what I'm gonna do. I'm not giving these people the answers anymore. What I did was I would do the article, and I got this from my kids because real good Italian pizza, like at Papa Gino's, they give the kids a menu with a maze.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch.
Wow.
Do you see him?
Wow, he bristled.
I sweat on that.
He bristled.
Miserable, disgrazia. So I would say to the kids, well, look at the cheese and go outside the maze. Same thing. I started to go, you know what? These people they're always claiming they know. So I started writing part one is, here's the problem. And I go, okay, best and brightest floor people, tell me what the problem is. I got really lucky. Like on almost every article, no one actually got it. Then I would put it out and they'd go, oh, I never thought of that. I took that element out because people don't read anymore, but they will stay tuned for a good mystery. I think somebody, it was Einstein or somebody said, the greatest thing to write is mystery. Yes. So sometimes I have to keep because the other thing too is you keep with all this internet stuff. I keep my cards close to the vest so that when I do reveal what I know, they'll go, this guy knows this stuff. Ryan, you've been out with me and he's been around forever. And sometimes I got to take it to another level and people go, you think too much. I go, then you're not going to solve this problem because it is at another level. It's at a chemistry level or a physics level or something. And like Ryan and I will go out and he'll go, how'd you come up with that? And then we'll share that. Same thing with Joe. We kind of share that information. I love sharing information technically with guys like you because you absorb it. If I say those black spots were caused by somebody with a file.
We used that photo from last year, the year before. Did you ever see that photo with the 4 black spots?
Oh, yeah.
In the dining room?
Yeah.
4, 8-inch circular spots, and then another one to the tail corner of it. And I walked into the house and they go, what do you think that is? I go, well, I can smell dog urine. So, and it's not cat urine. It's definitely dog urine that smelled totally different. And
pool table.
The pool table, exactly. And what it was is the dog had peed on every single leg and then the tail end. So you had one corner where there was a square spot, and then you had 4 spots that were black. And I remember sending you the photo. You go, what is this? And you go, I am using this. And you use the Hardwood.
Did they have a pool table? And I go, ask them if they had a male dog. because I have dogs. That's the first thing they mark everything. And it goes right down that big table leg and it saturates the whole thing. And you know what?
You got trapped.
Everyone online, a lot of them, some of them knew it was a staining, or they all thought potted plant.
Well, a lot of people said burns.
Right. But if you look, they're perfectly like 4 feet apart and 8 feet apart. And it's like it's some type of furnishing, and it worked out. But that's the fun of it. And now the whole point is, all right, put that in your memory bank that when you see a stain like that, why don't you start with its contamination? Probably urine. Only a few things will mark a floor. Like very simply, when people say my floor is cupped, or my floor is dry cupped, or my floor, really, it's either the introduction of water, vapor, moisture, water, or the absence of. And those are always people that go, hey, I want you to come look at my floor, but I want you to know right now, if you say water, it's not what it is. And I'm like, no, it is. That's like a house burns down and you go up to the fire department guy and you go, wait, a fire here? Well, who told you that? It's nothing to do with it. Smoke did it. Like, well, half the house is burnt down. People will do that right to your face. It ain't water. There's no water here. And there's 2 inches of water in their basement. And you said there was no water. And they go, well, what does that have to do with anything? I'm like, all right.
And you know, it's funny. I've had a customer, this is probably in the last 2 years, walked in the house and I looked at the floor and the floor looked odd. And I looked at it and I looked at the edges of every board. They were splintered, every single board. I said, did you ever flood this basement? Yeah, why? I said, you had water in your basement a lot. She goes, yeah, why? I go, did you have any copper? She goes, no, not really. I said, well, what happened was your boards pushed together so hard. You had compression set.
Yeah.
I said, you had compression set everywhere. I said, I could see the ridges on every floor in here. She goes, well, that's sand out. I go, yeah, it should be okay. We sanded it out and it all came out. But as soon as I walked on the floor, you could just see it looks like a half the thickness of a toothpick between every board. Yeah. I don't know how often you've seen that, but it's not something that's common. But I knew what it was.
A lot on maple.
Yeah. Are you glad that I answered your simple question? Because
I don't remember what the
I don't either. But the basic answer is, we wanted to do this for a long time. I'm really glad that you invited Mike because he's like this. I go, listen, he's the perfect guest. Yeah. You're right in our wheelhouse. We could let this roll forever and go from subject to subject.
Maybe we do part 2.
But New England flooring, and there's probably a Northeast and a New England one and a New England Hardwood floors, but New England flooring, and even when you look on his website and the work they do, it's so cool to look at. They do really, really good work the right way. And some people are very, avant-garde out there doing crazy stuff, and they make. I told you, I hate when I see a brook trout on the floor. I'm like, yeah,
that's a good idea, actually.
It's cool, but it's not, well, because you like, but listen, it's not timeless. Like you look at a painting and it's timeless, and you look at this goofy stuff and it's, do you really want an antelope and a bear in your floor in 30 years from now? I don't know. But what you do is you get some good looking stuff. And I told Ryan, if we were really nicer to you, that he would also drop all your pricing, or you could shop at my branch.
Well, isn't that the reason we're here today?
Yeah, it is exactly the reason.
Was there a misunderstanding?
Renegotiate the price.
Yes.
So Mike Deloia, New England Flooring, and you can be found. Your showroom is at 203 West Street in Milford. And
the police can corroborate.
Yeah, I've been there 28 years. Can't believe I'm heading on 30 years. It just seems like the blink of an eye. And I want to continue there as long as I can. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see a lot of older gentlemen. I'm not going to give an age bracket, but they get very crotchety, is my word. They get grouchy.
What do you mean by that? What the hell's that supposed to mean?
Get your Italian going back on there. So we see a lot of people who tend to get closed-minded as they get older, and they just get angry. And I don't ever want to be that person. I always want to be the person who's open-minded and listens and is able to evaluate the situations properly.
Is your showroom by appointment only?
It isn't, but I am a one-man show. So, my guys obviously do all the labor and everything else, but I do all the measures. I unload all the trucks. I make all the appointments, and I place all the orders, and I call Steve for all my technical issues that I can't figure out.
Which is fun.
We all do.
I love that stuff. I love that stuff. That's good.
Well, Mike, thanks again for taking the time to come and talk with us, and we'll have to have you come back on and talk about fishing, which we surprisingly...
This will be much longer.
That's how it started before the mics came on.
Surprisingly, we did not get to, but we'll save that for the next one. So,
sounds good.
Yeah, thanks again.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate being here.
All right, boys.